The war in Ukraine is the best thing that could have happened to China.
To the war in Ukraine.
90% of its houses are damaged
by air, from the sea, and most brutally, by land.
That the conflict is taking longer than Moscow anticipated.
And they blame one person, Vladimir Putin.
While the people in Ukraine are suffering and the world is distracted by all the violence and nuclear threats, China is sitting back, silently observing. How does the West and NATO react to such an invasion? Which countries might intervene with military forces? And could sanctions actually hurt the economy? This is China's chance to learn from Putin's mistakes and perfect its master plan, the unification of mainland China with Taiwan.
Taiwan is a province of China.
Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?
Yes, that's the commitment we made.
For decades, China has been working hard to become the next undisputed superpower. They've emerged as the world's second largest economy, right behind their number one enemy, the United States. They've built up a respectable military force with advanced weapon systems. But there's just one thing that has always slipped their grasp: bringing Taiwan back under Beijing's control.
祖国完全统一的历史任务一定要实现，也一定能够实现。
But why? You keep hearing about Taiwan, but why is China willing to risk it all for this tiny island? What is so special about it? What's the big deal? And will Taiwan be the target of the world's next invasion?
China could have similar plans for Taiwan.
My name is Jake Tran. I make documentaries on money, power, war, and crime with my team. Subscribe for more. If you want to win $1,000 cash, starting right now, we're picking a random Instagram follower every single week to win. You just have to be following me at Jake Tran, just got this new handle, and you're automatically entered. Watch out for fake accounts. I will never message you asking for money. And this is the complicated history of Taiwan. If you invest in crypto or stocks, wouldn't it be nice to see exactly what the people you look up to invest in? After all, people's actions, what they invest in, speak a lot louder than words, what they tell people they should invest in. This used to be impossible, but that's where Public comes in. Public is a social investing app where you can easily invest in stocks, ETFs, and crypto with any amount of money, and millions of people are already taking advantage of it. Public is a total game changer because you can follow other investors right in the app to see what they invest in. Imagine how much valuable information you can learn by peering into the minds of other successful business people and seeing exactly what they're investing in. This used to be impossible, and what people invested in was a closely guarded secret. But not anymore thanks to Public. I'm on Public too, you can follow me at Jake Tran. And what's great about Public is that they always put their investors first. Unlike other investment apps, Public will never sell your trades to market makers, and your trades are routed directly to exchanges. The Public app is free to use, and there are no commissions on standard stock trades, and it's backed by investors like Will Smith, the Chainsmokers, and Tony Hawk. Public has thousands of stocks and ETFs to choose from, and over 30 different cryptos like Bitcoin, Cardano, and Ethereum. Plus, you can buy slices of a stock, ETF, or crypto instead of a full share, so you can get started no matter what your budget is. And if you go to public.com/JakeTran and create an account, you'll get a free stock worth anywhere from $3 to $1,000. That's public.com/JakeTran to get a free stock with the link below. Thanks to Public for sponsoring this video.
Up to the late 19th century, China's Qing dynasty ruled over both mainland China and Taiwan, but then the Japanese came along. The Japanese were feeling ambitious at the time and had a whiff of imperialism, so they wanted to expand their empire. And one of their targets? Taiwan. So in 1895, the Japanese army landed near Keelung on the northern coast of Taiwan, and the Japanese invasion of Taiwan began. The Taiwanese army fought back with all they had, and even resorted to guerrilla tactics to slow down the enemy, but it wasn't enough. After 5 months of bloodshed, the Taiwanese waved the white flag, and for the next 50 years, Taiwan was a part of the Japanese Empire. But empires come and go, and after Japan was defeated during World War II, Taiwan came back under the control of the Chinese. But at that time, a civil war was escalating in China. The communists, led by Mao Zedong, were fighting against the nationalists over who was going to rule China. And slowly but surely, the communists were gaining more and more control over the mainland. In January 1949, a brutal guerrilla warfare campaign brought Beijing under communist control. And by August, the Communist Party's own army, the People's Liberation Army, or PLA, had gained a foothold over almost all of mainland China. Battle after battle forced the nationalists to retreat further into southeastern China. On October 1st, 1949, Mao Zedong declared victory, and China was now known as the People's Republic of China, or PRC. China had officially fallen to the communists, and the communist revolution had succeeded. But the nationalists wouldn't give up that easily. Even though they were defeated on the mainland, they would rather die than live under a communist regime. They had been backed into the literal corner of southeastern China, and the only place they had to go was to cross the Taiwan Strait and retreat to Taiwan. So over the course of the next 4 months, some 2 million soldiers, officers, and many civilians and refugees made their way to Taiwan. They saw it as their chance to regroup, recover, gain their strength back, and come up with a new plan to take back the mainland. So even though the communists won the war, the conflict was far from over. After a few failed attempts to regain some land on the mainland, the nationalists realized that facing the communists head-on was pointless. The communists had grown too strong, and they too weak. It was time for a change in strategy. So they thought to themselves, fine, we'll let these communists do whatever they want on the mainland, but Taiwan, we'll build our empire here. We'll build the real China. So they set up a brand new government, a regime in exile, so to speak, and went to work. At the time, there was practically nothing in Taiwan, so the people were poor and struggling to survive. But they were alive and ready to build something of their own. By the 50s and 60s, Taiwan was relying heavily on economic aid from the US, but that was all set to change. The island wanted to stand on its own 2 feet, so it began to produce and export cheap consumer goods for the world. It started with the basics, like sugar, tea, rice, and textiles. And as a result, Taiwan's economy started to grow stronger and stronger. As they traded more with the US, their economic ties with the US grew stronger and stronger, until eventually they became one of the US's biggest trading partners. To counter the threat of China, the US eventually started selling billions worth of weapon systems to Taiwan's military, even though China strongly disapproved. By the late 1980s, Taiwan shifted from a one-party dictatorship to a democracy, and people started to enjoy more and more freedom, while China had to watch from afar as this little island got wealthier and more independent by the day. But then in the 1990s, Taiwan made a decision that would change its fate forever. They dove headfirst into the semiconductor industry, and they started dominating it. Today, almost everything is powered by Taiwan's high-end chips, from smartphones to high-end military defense systems, including the ones by the US. So whoever controls Taiwan would also control the advanced chip industry, which would inadvertently be the ultimate position of power in the 21st century. And China? They were fuming watching all of this transpire. China's port cities like Hong Kong and Shanghai connect China's economy to the rest of the world. But if you want to get out into the Pacific, thousands of smaller and larger islands stand in your way, from the Japanese archipelago to Taiwan, the Philippines, and Sumatra. Navigating around all these islands makes your export business a lot more difficult,
especially since these islands are largely under US influence.
Since the 1950s, the US has been working to bring the so-called First Island Chain under their control. Imagine if the US had a bunch of islands up and down its east and west coast, and all of them were controlled by China. At any moment, China could choose to block off the US from the rest of the world. And since most trade comes through the oceans, a blockade like this would suffocate America in a matter of weeks. That's the position China is in right now with these First Island chains under America's influence. It's a strategic nightmare for them. By taking over Taiwan, China would break the encirclement in half and gain direct access to the Pacific. That's the strategic reason for wanting Taiwan. But there's also something much deeper at play here. Over the decades, Taiwan has developed into a proud, independent country with its own identity. The people in Taiwan don't see themselves as Chinese citizens anymore. They are proud Taiwanese people now. They have a booming economy, a democratic system, good healthcare, a weird concept called freedom of speech, and they're ready to defend their precious island with all they've got. This represents a fundamental problem for China. What would it mean for the citizens of China if they saw they could have just as much, if not more prosperity than what the Chinese government offers, while having more freedom? After all, it's not like the people of Taiwan are fundamentally different than the people of China. Both populations come from mainland China, except one is westernized, has more freedom, and in a lot of ways, a lot more prosperity. What if China didn't need a surveillance state? What if life could go on without the legitimate threat of getting kidnapped by the government? What if the government couldn't just shut down their business and throw them in jail whenever they pleased? Just what if? That is the problem with Taiwan. Taiwan's success is a threat to everything the Chinese government stands for. It threatens their power, it threatens to infect their population with the idea of freedom. But Beijing would never admit to that. So they stick to their old claim that Taiwan is nothing more than lost territory, a part of a united, glorious China. That mainland China holds a historical claim over Taiwan, that Taiwan is rightfully theirs, and that it's only fair that you take back what was once yours, right? But why is China hesitating? After all, China's armed forces already dwarf those of Taiwan, and China has advanced weapons most countries can only dream of. But even though Taiwan's military may not be a match for China's, with the US by their side, Taiwan is certain that they can fend off an invasion. So as of right now, no Chinese leader has dared to take the risk. But now it seems like Beijing may be finally ready to take that risk.
我们不承诺放弃使用武力。
民主的台湾，民选的政府不会屈服于威胁、恫吓。
Since 2016, Beijing has been turning up the heat on Taiwan. Their goal? To wear them down by any means and make the people realize, maybe it's better to reunite with the mainland instead of getting crushed by it. And Beijing doesn't shy away from using the dirtiest tactics in the book. For one, the Taiwanese government faces thousands of cyber attacks every single day. Beijing has put China's best hackers on the job, and the task is clear: to infiltrate the government and get as much intel as possible. If you know exactly how your enemy's defense systems work, you can find a way to destroy them. If you know what your enemy knows about you, you can change your strategy and hit them with a surprise attack. The more you know, the better your chances of gaining the upper hand. But Beijing is also big on controlling the media and spreading misinformation. In the 2020 election, China spread misinformation to drive Taiwan's current president out of office. A divided country is a weak country. And if you can't pull off a successful invasion, maybe you can sow enough division and destroy the system from within. Or maybe to get a pro-Chinese leader installed, much like what the US does. But that's only one part of China's strategy to bring Taiwan to its knees. For years, China has been spending hundreds of billions of dollars on its military. It's Beijing's goal to have the most powerful military forces and weapon systems in the world. So even if the US steps in, China's military could handle it. They've built up their marine forces to 5 times its previous size, and they are working on advanced missile technology that even the US is afraid of.
U.S. officials tonight closely monitoring China's missile program, following a report of a possibly ominous missile test.
An article by the Financial Times said that China tested a nuclear-capable hypersonic missile that circled the globe before speeding towards its target, demonstrating an advanced space capability that caught U.S. intelligence by surprise. And to make sure China could handle a war on several fronts, China's military has been practicing missile attacks on fake U.S. warships. Practice makes perfect, after all. And if China reaches a point where they're no longer afraid of a US military strike, all bets are off. Beijing also has a clear warning to Taiwan's allies. In a defense document, it says that China's military would resolutely defeat anyone attempting to separate Taiwan from China. In the meantime, China's military has been trying to intimidate Taiwan into submission. They've been sending warships through the Taiwan Strait in a show of force. And for the last 2 years, China's fighter jets were flying near and over Taiwan on a daily basis. On May 6 this year, China sent 18 warplanes, including fighters and bombers, into Taiwan's air defense zone. Besides keeping Taiwan's defense on constant alert, it's also a great psychological tactic when your enemy surrounds you 24/7 from all sides, never showing any signs of weakness. And Taiwan is taking these threats quite seriously, so they are preparing for war. In China's eyes, a military invasion probably wouldn't be their first choice, but if they can't subvert Taiwan back under their control peacefully, an invasion at the right time may be their only option. But even with an impressive military and high-end weapon systems, it won't be that easy. When you look at Taiwan versus China on a map, it almost looks like a no-brainer. Yeah, this would be a walk in the park for China. But there's more than meets the eye. And invading Taiwan may be the greatest military challenge in history. Unlike Ukraine, Taiwan is an island, so you don't have thousands of miles of shared border from where you can invade. Your armed forces need to cross about 100 miles of ocean before the actual invasion begins. Your invading force would be exposed for several hours, and a lot can go wrong during that time. Taiwan and its allies might come at you with guerrilla-like attacks, sinking dozens of warships in the process. So before you even reach Taiwan's shore, you're already exhausted, confused, and demoralized. We all learned in War 101 that the invading army must be at least 3 times bigger than the defending army. So even though Taiwan has only about 170,000 active troops, China might need between 400,000 to 1 million troops for an invasion. That's a lot of troops. Then you need hundreds of ships to transport these men and hundreds of jets to protect them. Living quarters, food supplies for each man. There is a lot of infrastructure that goes into a war aside from the weapons. And the US would most likely notice such a military buildup just like they did with Ukraine. It would be a logistical nightmare. And since the Chinese military has practically no combat experience, it would get very bloody. And then there's the next little challenge you have to overcome: Taiwan's limited landing options. The eastern part of Taiwan is mostly mountains and cliffs, so forget about landing on that side. And on the west side, there are only a few places where China's troops could actually land, and your timing would have to be perfect. You need to hit the beaches and ports simultaneously to overwhelm your enemy. Then you would have to fight like hell for every inch of land, while deadly counterfire would pour down on you from all sides. Besides, most of Taiwan's chip facilities are in those areas, and destroying them would be a huge loss for China. They call it Taiwan's Silicon Shield. Their superior chip technology is simply too valuable, even for China to destroy, so they have to think twice about what they want to blow up in that area. There are also Taiwan's nearby allies you have to think about. Okinawa is less than an hour's flight away from Taiwan, and there are US warplanes and 20,000 Marines waiting to join the fight. Japan has been in talks with Taiwan as well. They are worried that if Taiwan falls, Japan's outlying islands could be next. So Japan's armed forces may join the fight as well. But if all that doesn't stop China, and they still take over Taiwan, we may see the beginning of a new world order. The US alliance around the first island chain would break in half, and China would take full control of the advanced chip industry, putting the modern world at their mercy.
Threats like China make it no surprise that the cybersecurity field is booming right now and more important than ever, with an average salary of $96,000 a year. The problem is, cybersecurity can be very overwhelming to get into. You need computer science fundamentals, maybe some programming, algorithm fundamentals. It's a lot and can be very intimidating. But if this is something you think you might want to get into, then I've got the perfect solution for you. Brilliant! Brilliant is a learning platform that has courses on all these subjects that I just mentioned and much more. It helps you learn the STEM skills you need to make a lot of money through entertaining interactive courses. I recommend taking their computer science learning path that will give you a great foundation. And within this learning path, there's a computer science fundamentals course, an algorithm fundamentals course, and much more. And if you start and you don't think it's for you, well, don't worry because they have a ton of other STEM learning paths you can choose from. The great thing about Brilliant is that it's helped over 11 million people truly understand STEM concepts instead of just memorizing them like they have us do in school. So if you're ready to get your foundation in these profitable skills, you can get started for free by visiting brilliant.org/JakeTran with the link below. The first 200 people to sign up will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. That's brilliant.org/JakeTran for 20% off today. Thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring this video. What's up guys, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you are new here, we make documentaries just like this one every single week on money, power, and crime for free. So if you enjoyed this one, click the subscribe button below. You can follow me on Instagram at jtran.io. I only have one account and I will never message you asking for money, so watch out for fake accounts. But that's gonna wrap it up. Stay dangerous out there and I'll see you guys in the next one.